Hi guys, Ken Smith Fishing. So the title of this video is Boat That Carries the Best Long-Term Value. And that's part of what I set out to do this series. And we're going to tie a bow on this series this week with the last two videos, today and again Thursday. And I really wanted to get a sense of what boat carried its best value, carried the value the best over multiple years. And I'll tell you, so I have a pretty good sense of this video. I know what I'm going to do today, and I have a pretty good sense of Thursday's video. And I have been clickbaited into enough Bigfoot videos. A lot of you guys don't know this, but in my early videos, there was a lot of talk about Bigfoot. I'm like the X-Files, man. I want to believe. But, and if you look in the bottom of my description, the very last line in every single video I've ever posted says, Bigfoot, if you're out there, man, give me a shout out. Still have video with you. But I don't want to clickbait you on this one. I don't think we're going to be able to determine what boat carries its best value, but I do think this will be a pretty interesting video. And I'm always stunned. Some of the stuff that I put out that I thought was crap gets lots of views, and some stuff that I'm fascinated with gets no views. These videos are getting about 2,000 views each, which is really not very good for my channel. But I enjoy doing them, and the guys that have stuck with me through it obviously enjoy them too. And this is a lot more about doing stuff that I enjoy than trying to make a living on YouTube. So let's just sort of dive into, so we've already done a couple of videos on this series. I think this is number 4. They're all in the playlist. I'll put a link to the playlist right there if you've not seen them. But so these numbers are going to be slightly different than the first video because I went back and I updated the numbers. There's been a couple of boats put up for sale. If you remember, I cut the data off on the first video at December 22nd. I've added some boats have sold, and I've now narrowed the field to only boats that are 5 years old or newer. And so I'm actually setting that up to be 2019 through 2024s, really 2023s. So in that there's, and this is just kind of a high level breakdown. So we got 5 XB21 Allisons for, I love starting off a video and immediately find a mistake. So there is one XB21 for sale. It's a 2021. The ask price is roughly $80,000 on it. And then, so part of why I don't think we're going to be able to figure out which boat carries the longest term value is twofold. Number one, there's not a big enough database, but we're still going to get some really good data out of this. And this is what we're going to see right here. Number two, there's such a variance on what's on all these boats. And we're going to break that down in this video as well. But, you know, you really need 30-ish samples in a data set to get any kind of good conclusions from it. And you're going to see we don't have that in any single boat made. We've got it in boat makers, but not in a boat, not in a model of boat. So there's 5 Cougar FTDs, there's 8 Eras, there's 2 Jags, 2 Lynxes, 8 Puma STSs, and then 3 Puma FTDs out there. There's only 1 used Blazer for sale. There's one 21 Bullet, actually, and there's 2. There's a 21 and then there's a mix. And when I say that, what I mean is boat and motor are not the same year model. So always in this, you're going to see throughout, that's 22 boat, 2019 motor. And then there's 1 new 23. In the Caymases, there's 8 CX20s, there's 12 CX21s. In the Falcon, there's 2 F205s and 1 Predator. Little correction there. And then in the Icons, they're all new. There's not a used boat on Bass Boat Central right now. There's a lot of Phoenixes, 10, and I kind of ranked them by the most, 10 721s, which is a little shorter. It's their fastest boat. 8 920, 7 21 PHXs, 7 21 Pro XPs. There's so many models. I don't know why they do this. They're all relatively the same boat. And I'm sure somebody will argue with me about that, but when I ask, I've got buddies who run Phoenixes for several years, and they literally at times can't remember which one they're running, so that tells me there's not a hell of a lot of difference in them. But you can kind of see the numbers there. Nitro, there's so many, and Ranger, same, I put them on the next page. In the Tritons, there's 4 21 TRXs, 2 20 TRXs, and 1 20 TRC Patriot, and I think that actually was an 18 that I pull off later in this review. In the Nitros, there are 10 Z20s. Again, Nitro has package and not, so it's the same boat like Ranger does, where you can buy packaged or not packaged, but they name them a little bit different. So there's 10 Z20s, 2 Z20 Pros, a Z21 Elite, Z21 Pro XL, ZX21 XLs, and a Z21 XL Pro. And if I mess one of those up, I apologize. You Nitro guys know what I'm talking about. And the Rangers, this surprised me now. So the 520, there's only one in the year model that qualifies here, and it probably, so there weren't, when they came out, so I guess they came out with the L and then they came out with the R. There's one 521C sitting out there. What's interesting is obviously the 520 sells way better than the 521, which I talked about this before. I own both. I like the way the 520 drove and fished better, but in big water, I'll take that extra foot every day. So there are 11 520Rs, 7 521Ls, and then one 521R. And by the way, you're going to see in a minute, I'm also going to highlight what I saw is there's a couple that seem to me possibly really good deals in here. And I just thought I'd highlight those two since we had done that on James's boat a few weeks ago. Kind of stupid best boat deals. And then in Skeeters, there's a bunch, again, a bunch of models. The most are the ZXR 20s. There's only 2 ZX250s in that boat they don't make anymore. FX20, there's one of those. There's 6 FXR 20s and 3 FXR 21s. Vexus, thank you. Vexus only makes 2 models in the glass boat, a VX20 and a VX21. There's 6 and 3 of those. So again, I don't think we're going to see a big enough based upon that to give us a conclusion, but we can dive into the data and we can gather a little bit. There's a little bit more information to be had here. So in the Cougars, there are 5 Cougar FTDs. And by the way, there's now the Cougar STS. I don't know how that's going to impact the resell on the FTDs, but there's 5 Cougar FTDs. 3 2020s, all priced give or take $80,000. A 2021 at $75,000 and a 2019 at $58,000. And in the second part of this video, I think I have a really good sense now of how much boat prices fall. 23s to 22s to 21s to 20s to 19s. There's a very obvious pattern, and it's an interesting pattern. You'll see that in Thursday's video. In the eras, there's a lot of eras out there because that's been the boat that a lot of the pros have run. The era is, I think, probably by most standards considered the fastest Bass Cat with a 250 on it. There's 223s, both around 81 grand. There's 222s, one's at 77, one's at 69. There's a 2020 at 69, and then there's a mix 1820. So remember, that's an 18 boat with a 21 motor at 60. And I noted there the 2020 seems a little high to me. So this would be the first boat, if I were in space to buy a used boat right now, that I would probably want to go investigate a little bit more. And you can find it on Bass Boat Central. That's where all these boats came from. So it's a 2022 era Pro XS. It's got a hydraulic jack plate. It's got HDS 12 at the bow on the console, so it's only 2 units. It's got an active target. Noco Genius 4-bank charger, 10-foot power poles, which I'm not a fan of the 10-footers, but it's got reflex cockpit flooring, not the whole boat. It's got a Hambies, and what attracted me especially to the boat was it's got 3.5 years left on the warranty. So at $69,000, that's priced substantially better than the other boats in that space. And then looking at the Puma STSs, there's 4 2023's price plus or minus $91,000, and you see I've got an asterisk there, and we'll come back to that asterisk. And then there's 2 mixed 23-22s, one's at 88 and one's at 98. But the one at 98 is absolutely loaded to the gills. It's got a ton of electronics on it. And then the 2022 at $90,000, seems a little bit overpriced, but again, it also has. But one of the things I did note here, there's not a lot of drop, probably in the STS versus all the other boats I looked at. And my conclusion here is not that Bass Cat holds their value best or that the Bass Cat Puma holds their value best. But there's either some guys trapped in some Pumas trying to sell them, which I don't believe is the case, or they're selling really well. And I think that's a function of it's their wide body. It's a very fast boat. There's a lot of guys. I mean, you just saw Milliken just went to the Puma STS, and he even said it. There is a difference If you've never been in a boat pre-White River, sorry guys, but pre-White River Marine Group Ranger, when they were truly, I'm going to call them handmade, although they're all to some degree handmade, but between that and a mass-produced boat, it's just a different feel in the boat. And until you've spent some time in it, you're never going to know that. They just don't feel the same. But they're not dropping those Pumas much. So I think there's a lot of demand and still not a ton of supply in those boats out there. Sorry, there's a little bit of a typo here, but you saw that earlier, the 2022 Puma for $98,000. And so that just jumped out at me. It seemed a little bit high, or a lot high compared to the other boats. But when I dug into it a little bit, it's got 2 Garmin 126 SVs on it. That's $6,000. And I know we've talked about this. They're not worth the brand new value, but this is a pretty new boat. So I was just trying to kind of come up with my mind why this boat's priced so high. It's got 2 Bird Solixes on it. That's $6,400 plus. It's got a power pole charger on it, about $1,500. It's got live scope on it, $1,500. It's got Mega 360 on it, $1,500. It's got lithiums. You're going to see in a minute. I don't know that there's a ton of value to lithiums. We've talked about that, but I think for sure $1,000, maybe 15, maybe $2,000, according to how bad you want them. But there's probably 20,000 in extras above what some of those other Pumas have new. So I think there's probably reason why that boat is priced where it is. And then there's a second Puma in there that, to me, is the silliest deal of all the boats for sale right now. And this is Chad Pipkin's boat. He's a professional fisherman. It's a 23 Puma STS with a 250 Suzuki SS 74-9 on that boat. This boat is loaded, so it's got a Atlas hydraulic jack plate. It's got the Quest, which is the new Minn Kota brushless trolling motor. It's got 2 Solixes, 12s. You've already saw that's over $6,000. It's got 3 Helix 10s. It's got Mega Live. It's got Mega 360. It's got lithiums. It's got a Hydro Wave. It's got a cover. And by the way, that warranty data right there on the presentation you're looking at is not correct. That motor, I want to say it's to December. Bear with me for a second. I've got the data here. That motor is in warranty till December of 27. So sorry, Chad, I messed that up on your boat. But that's about $17,000 less than the average 2023 boat price. And I'm a Mercury guy. A lot of you guys are Yamaha guys. If I were looking for a new boat, a new used boat, I could probably live with the Suzuki for well, crap, as far as that goes. You could pull the Suzuki off, sell it to an offshore guy, and hang a Mercury or Yamaha in there for not a whole lot more money and still come out ahead. So that actually, you probably could come out ahead in that deal. So that just really jumped out at me as a stupid good deal. And I'm actually really surprised that boat's still for sale, but it's still out there. So then we went to the Caymases. You've got CX20, you got 2 23s, one at 65 and one at 70, 3 22s, 60 to 83, so big variance, but also big variance in features. A mixed 22 23 at 70, and a mixed 21 23 at 69, and then a 2020 at 68. 2 of note there again, kind of like I did on the other ones. The 83 boat that was on there. That boat actually sold between when I did the first video and when I did this video. And it was loaded and it got sold. And the 2022, which was a stripped down boat, but it was for $60,000, it also got sold since we did that original video, but I included them in the data set here. Sorry, I had to get a glass of water there. And by the way, Sarah and I are doing dry January, so we're 8 days, actually we're 7 days in. We drank on the 1st with family, but 7 days in, dry January. Already dropped 2 pounds. But I said earlier, I added some boats. I did not subtract any boats because I was trying to make my data set as big as I could to see if I could figure some stuff out. So I added boats, but I did not subtract boats from this, from my counts, because I had good data on them. So of those boats, one boat sort of jumped out at me in there as well. There's a 22 Cayman CX21 at $65,000, and that boat, it's not loaded, but it's a good price. So it was bought February of last year, and I believe that means that the warranty runs through February of 26 is what I read. It's got 2 HDS Lives and an HDS Pro. I don't know the difference in those Lowrance units, but I know there is a difference. It's got poles, and it's only got 68 hours on the motor. And that is about 8,000 lower than any of the other 22s out there. So that seemed like a really good deal. If I was looking for a new boat, I'd probably be wanting to take a peek at that boat as well. Moon Power runs a Camus. Scott Dean runs a Camus. They both been really happy with those boats. So good boats. In the Phoenixes, there's, again, so many models. There's one 2022 20 PHX at 78 grand. There's two 2023s. Plus or minus 79 grand. And this jumped out at me. I made that note to myself right there because one of those is a Suzuki, and that guy's asking the same as the guy running the Mercury. So again, I'm scratching my head why Pipkin's boat hadn't sold at that price. Or maybe this guy may never be able to sell this boat at this price. I don't know, but there's a delta there. There's a difference. I don't quite understand. There's a 2022 21 PHX at 78.5, four 2021s, 59 to 69. And interestingly, of all the boats in this review, those four boats, if I remember right, two had 400 hours, one had 300 hours, and one had 200 hours. It's just a group of boats. That looked like the biggest group of hours. And it's interesting to me, of the guys at Rayburn that I know that do a ton of graphing, Chris Wilson's one of the guys who jumps to mind immediately. He runs Phoenix. Those guys, it's sort of, old school, ride around and look at your electronics. And Chris is hard to beat when he's catching them, right? When he finds groups of fish. And that's what those are. Those are not, you're not getting 400 hours running up and down the lake. You're getting 400 hours idling through the Black Forest. So, then the 721 Pro XPs you saw there, there's 423s, 72, 74, all kind of grouped up, 322s, plus or minus 68.5, and then 221s at 62 to 68. And then, again, a lot of models, right? You got a 920 Elites. You got nothing that really jumps out at me. You can kind of see the pricing there, kind of all the way through all of these. There's just singles on a lot of these. It's pretty obvious. I can't remember now. I got to look at them again. So six, that looks like their biggest seller, which I think I've read, is a 721 Pro X, Pro XP. And then in everything else, it looks like the 920 Elite is probably the biggest seller, since there's, 9 of those boats for sale. And I think you can probably track new boats to used boats as being sold. In the Nitro, there is one Z20, a 2023 at 52 grand, but it's got 0 electronics on it. And actually, there's a boat here that I thought would be another one I would probably go look at. A couple 22s, 21s, a 19, again, a lot of model numbers. ZX20 Pro, there's a mix in there at 50, 52, 55, 51, 54, 54. The one boat that jumped out at me, and again, this guy, I think I said this about 2 different guys in this. This guy needs to run a better ad. But there's a 23 Z21 Pro XL in there. He literally doesn't even say what's on the boat, but looking at his pictures, there's a couple of 12-inch graphs, or maybe bigger. It's hard to tell. There's a forward facing. You can see the forward facing sonar transducer on his trolling motor. Has less than 20 hours, and he's only asking 62 grand. Based on the pricing of the other Pro X, let's see, make sure I get this right. That's a Pro XL. Go back up through my data. Those boats range, most of them are in the high 60s, low 70s. So that looks like a pretty good deal on that boat. And then a couple of other Nitros, C21 XL and Z21 XL Pros. You can see there's 7, 9, 10, 11 or 12 of those boats out there as well. And I'm kind of moving through this data, which this video is longer than I want it to be because of the last video when we're going to kind of pull all this data together. That will be Thursday. But then in the Rangers, you got a mix 520C, a 2019 20 boat, 19 motor. It's 65. You got the L's. There's a bunch of them out there, 7, 8, 9 of them out there. From 70 to 85, and then a couple of those 2022s are sitting in there. Or one of them has an Evinrude on it. That's the one that's priced so low right now. Yeah, it's probably pretty hard to sell a boat that they don't make anymore. So that's those boats right there. And then there was also a boat, one of those Z520Rs. There's 11 of them on there. There's 5 that appear new. They range 84 to 92, and it's the same boat. It's just according to what accessories you're putting on it. And then with 6 hours or greater, there's 6 of them with hours. And then they range from 72 to 88. And then there was one out there for 71.9, and I think it sold within a week of being posted. So it was up. It was right before I pulled that data, and it was gone immediately. So finished them out. We got the Skeeters. We got a whole bunch of Skeeters, and there's one that looks like a potentially good deal here. So you got so many models. You can kind of see the high end on all the models is about about $91,000. That's on a new FXR. And then this boat sort of jumped out at me. And again, dude really needs to put a better ad up because he doesn't tell you anything about it. It does have a manual jack plate. It looks to have 4 12-inch or greater Lowrance units on. It's got 155 hours, which is a little high for a 1-year-old boat. He says warranty until 2027. I don't know if that's January or December. The pictures are not very good. I mean, it doesn't appear he's trying to sell this boat very hard, except he's got it really priced well. That's it's about $5,000 better than the rest of the 2023s, and actually closer to some 2021's pricing in that boat model. So that's a pretty dang good price. And then we're going to finish this a little bit up right here. Triton and Vexus, 20 TRX and 21 TRXs, all priced pretty similarly in that high 50s, low 60s range. And then the Vexuses, and you're going to see in the last video, there's some interesting stuff I saw in the Vexuses. But, you know, it's funny. I remember when the Vexus come out, everybody was talking about how expensive they are. These boats now, I don't know if the prices come down, if everybody else's prices have sort of caught up, but the used boat prices on the Vexuses are pretty similar to the other kind of premium boat maker used boat prices. And there's not a whole heck of a lot of them out there. So, you know, 5 2023s, VX20s, 1 22, and the VX21s, 2 22s, and 1 20. And, you know, those boats were pretty hard to get up until probably 18, 24 months ago. So there's just not a huge inventory of them sitting out there. So let's pause there, and I will pull Thirsty's video together. I'm going to finish recording it now, but I think that sets up the data set to go through our conclusions, and we'll tie a bow around this thing. And if that one wasn't very interesting, I apologize, but I wanted to give you the basis for my conclusions, and I think you'll enjoy the conclusions in the last part. So back with part 2 on Thirsty, guys. Thanks for tuning in.